Hey, what is going on, everybody out there? This is Jakejames Lugo. Welcome to the channel and welcome to this brand new JJ's One Man Podcast. Hopefully you guys have been doing all right. We got some big games coming very soon. Next week is Final Fantasy 16. I'm excited. I cannot wait. Looking forward to playing that game. I just did a thing on the demo too. If you haven't had a chance to check it out on the channel, there's a whole hour-long video of me playing and reacting to the Final Fantasy 16 demo. That's an awesome demo, for the record. If you haven't yet actually gotten a chance to play that demo, I highly recommend you do so. It'll definitely get you hyped up for the game. That all aside, we're not here to talk about Final Fantasy 16. No, today we're talking a little bit about Star Wars. Yes, specifically Star Wars Outlaws that recently just got revealed during the Summer Game Fest presentations, specifically the Xbox Game Showcase. A lot of people have a lot to say about it. I've talked about Star Wars Outlaws here and there in various different places, including, if you haven't already seen, I was a guest over on the Rule the Galaxy podcast that you guys could go check out right now. It's over on their YouTube channel and over on their Apple Podcasts page, as well as also Spotify, if I'm not mistaken. But basically, we talked a whole bunch of stuff over there. But in this episode here, I want to focus a little bit more on the reaction and some of the discourse about Star Wars Outlaws. Now, in some of the other places, if you've been able to listen to some of my thoughts here and there, this might be a little bit repetitive for you, but for everybody else, this will be all fresh. Now, overall, I thought that the presentation for Star Wars Outlaws was pretty darn good. I thought that the game looks interesting, has an interesting character. There's a girl named Kay, as well as also her little furry companion named Nyx is the character you're going to be playing as throughout the course of this game. But more importantly than that, it's a game that's an open world game that's set within the Star Wars universe or the Star Wars galaxy. It's one of the first open world games that's truly an open world game for Star Wars. A lot of people have had this back and forth with me as well, saying that this isn't the first open world game for Star Wars in general. However, that doesn't necessarily seem to be the case. Now, I know it's a little bit of stretching the marketing a little bit. Technically, there's been other games like Star Wars Jedi Survivor, like Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, like Star Wars Galaxies that have had elements of open world, gameplay from that type of genre, but those aren't necessarily classified as open world games. And the only reason why I say that, and the only reason why I know that, is because unlike everybody else, I actually went to go look this up. I was asking myself the exact same questions that everybody was bringing up, and I was saying to myself, how is it that they could come on and put that out there in the marketing material if there's all these other games out there that everybody could easily find and easily see? Now, the funny thing about that, a lot of those games that I mentioned that people keep bringing up were games that weren't classified as open world games. The biggest one that I actually got into a back and forth a little bit with Echo Base Network was Star Wars Galaxies. Now, Star Wars Galaxies is classified as an MMO. It's a massively multiplayer online RPG. We all know this. Some of us played Star Wars Galaxies back in the day. And it does have open world elements to it, but it's not classified as an open world game. But so before I even get into the rest of that, what is an open world game? What's an example of an open world game that people are comparing and contrasting all this stuff to? An example that I saw when I was looking things up and doing a little bit of research were games like Elden Ring, games like Horizon Zero Dawn and Forbidden West, games like No Man's Sky, games like Ghost of Tsushima, and the list goes on. If you notice, a lot of those games are third-person action games, with the exception of No Man's Sky. But the main thing about those games is that they were primarily designed as open-world games. They weren't all these other games in these other genres that borrowed open-world elements. The reason why I say that Horizon Zero Dawn or Horizon Forbidden West is more of an open world game than Knights of the Old Republic is because you could truly go anywhere you want from the very beginning of Horizon and be able to explore around the environment. Granted, also, there's little places that are limited to you because you don't have certain abilities and stuff, but those places are there. Those locations are there. You're not necessarily closed off to them completely. You could technically, in certain areas in games like that, break the game to still reach those areas, even though you might not have the the equipment, the items, or the abilities in order to reach them through normal means. Unlike Knights of the Old Republic and even something like Star Wars Galaxies, where you do have that freedom to move around, but you are limited and closed off to certain sections that are still part of the game. You just can't reach them because they're so far off, either by not completing a quest or doing other things that limit your exploration. It's not in the same way. I know some people kind of compare and contrast them in a very similar fashion because, again, on surface level and at first glance, they're very similar. There's a lot of bleed through or a lot of diffusion between all these different games and genres. So I thought that was like one of the bigger points of discussion about this game, because everybody was saying, and especially Echo Base Network was saying, oh, Ubisoft is lying. They got caught in a lie. They don't know what they're talking about. And it's like, well, hold up a second. I don't think the people over at Ubisoft are that stupid. So let me at least look up some of this stuff. And that's how I came to find all these different things. And that's at least how I feel about Star Wars Outlaws. And as far as the game itself is like what type of game it is. Now, beyond that stuff, okay? Well, we were getting tongue twisted because I'm talking so damn much, but that's the podcast for you. So besides that, the other thing I want to talk about, which I think is the bigger thing, okay, is the article by Kotaku. Now, if you didn't already look at this, I talked about this over on TikTok for a bit, and I talked about it on the Rule the Galaxy podcast, but I never had a one-on-one conversation with you guys here. The Kotaku article is basically an article that is written up over on Kotaku. You could read it now. You could go over to their website. It's still up. It's basically talking about not only the reaction of Star Wars fans and gamers in general to female protagonists in a Star Wars game, but also the need for more female protagonists in games in general. The thing is that besides my own reaction, not even getting to my reaction in the first place, the reaction from a lot of people was more about Kotaku like reaching as opposed to being upset about what Star Wars Outlaws actually was. A lot of the reactions, like I mentioned before, that I saw for this game when it was first revealed, and especially during the gameplay showcase, when they showed it at the Xbox Game Showcase, they actually had a lot of people that were really intrigued by this game. It looks really good. A lot of people said it looks pretty interesting, and it seems to be very ambitious for the type of stuff it's trying to do within the Star Wars content or, the Star Wars galaxy itself. And there weren't a lot of people that I saw, even through searching on social media, that were upset about this. Yet the article is claiming that there's a bunch of people that are outraged or that there's a backlash for it. Let alone they didn't even really cite examples of stuff like this. Like they didn't pull tweets. They didn't pull any sort of like forum post or anything like that. However, a lot of people even went out and pointed out, after doing a little bit of research on their end, looking through places like Twitter, that there was only really like a small grouping of people that were saying things like that. So basically, Kotaku wrote up this article that was like making a mountain out of a molehill from this small group of people that just happen to put random tweets out that really don't matter in the greater context of everybody else out there. That small group of people on social media, as loud as they might be, don't speak for the whole or speak volumes to the rest of the people out there that are looking at this game and reacting to it. It's so crazy to me how this seems to continuously be a thing, not just with Kotaku. There's other websites that rolled with this here and there. There was a couple places and a couple writers and industry people on social media that were really passing this around and really trying to perpetuate this idea that Star Wars fans just don't like female characters. Star Wars fans that play games just have a problem with female protagonists and all these other things. Yet at the flip side of that, when you really look at everything that's going on, outside of them reaching very hard, there's a lot of support for Star Wars Outlaws. So why is it that like this article is getting published like this? And I kept asking myself, like, why is this continuously end up being a problem that people are constantly going back and forth about with places like Kotaku? It seems to be a habit with Kotaku, with a lot of different things, okay? Not just Star Wars. And I think people are starting to get really tired of it. I know I saw a video that was shared over on Star Wars Theories channel where he talked about it as well. And he put it really good. Not in his exact words, but he was basically saying, like, look, like Star Wars fans are really getting tired of getting put with this whole, like, labeling that they just hate women, that they just hate females. Like, that's not true at all. Ever since the beginning of Star Wars in 1977 with Episode 4, A New Hope, we've had one of the biggest icons in pop culture when it comes to feminism, female empowerment, and a lot of other things regarding equality and fantasy storytelling. So why is it that, like, these outlets and these writers and these different people consistently try to insist that that's not the case? He put it in a much more elaborate way. It was like a, 10, 20-minute video or something where he talked about it a little bit more in depth. But a lot of the stuff that he was saying was pretty much on the money. And it was like very similar to how I thought about all this stuff. Because I think, like he said, people are just tired of that. We've heard so many things about this between a lot of the different shows from like Obi-Wan Kenobi, from the stuff that was going on with The Mandalorian, Book of Boba Fett included, and also obviously the sequel trilogy. This label that Star Wars fans, and in this case Star Wars gamers, don't like females in their storytelling is like so absurd and so ridiculous and so over the top for a lot of different things that people are like, you know what? Like, just stop. Just quit it. Just cut it out, for God's sakes. We're getting a great Star Wars game that people have varying opinions about. They might be a little bit disappointed about not having a custom character and stuff, but that doesn't mean that they hate the game or they hate the idea of what this game is trying to be. That's the other thing, too, that I need to address as well, because I saw this passed around in various different places, in relation to that same discussion, that people were so mad and so upset about not getting a custom character in this game. It's like, this game really wasn't trying to be that. Like, nowhere at any point did Ubisoft or any of the other, like, early marketing material and, like, little promotions and posts like, any of those things, like, ever really, like, hint at getting a custom creation, a custom character creation or anything of that nature for what this game is. Like, I don't know where people got that. I know it's wishful thinking that people like the idea of being able to make their own characters, to make themselves within a game. That's fine. But this seems like this was something that was just thrown out there by some random person and people just rolled with it. Because I even went back to some of the earlier posts from some of the people at Massive Entertainment to see if like they gave any sort of like, hint or anything like that. Nothing. There was nothing that was ever mentioned with something like this. So I think people in this case need to get over that and stop just like harping on it. I saw it in a bunch of different, like, not forum posts, but like different comment sections of like various YouTube videos talking about this stuff. And it seems to be a thing. Like, we get it. We know that you love making your own character in your games, but that's not what Star Wars Outlaws is. Star Wars Outlaws is a story about Kay, about Nix, and some of the other characters and people that she meets within this time frame of the original trilogy, which is between episode 5 and 6, between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. This is her story, in the underworld as like part of the scoundrels, the different types of like scum and villainy that's going on within this time frame of the Star Wars galaxy. That's her story. In the same way that Cal Kestis' story is told in Jedi Fallen Order and Jedi Survivor, this is the type of game that we're getting and the type of plot we're going to follow with this character. So get over it at that point. I don't think we need to harp on it anymore about not getting a custom character. Now, I will say, there's other Star Wars games that are coming out from Respawn that might get into something like this. Remember, now that Jedi Survivor is out, we got 2 other Star Wars games besides that 3rd game for the Jedi series that are getting made right now. We just don't know their names, and we don't know a lot of their other stuff or elements about them. That's the first-person shooter that's being done by Respawn, which the only thing we know about that, because it's something I wrote about over on Clownfish TV, we know of a LinkedIn posting that went out that was looking for different people to work on this game, and they mentioned specifically by name that the game is inspired heavily as a first-person shooter by the Jedi Knight series. So that means the games that starred Kyle Katarn, so Dark Forces, Jedi Knight, Jedi Outcast, Jedi Academy, etc. That's the only thing we know about that game. And then the other game from Respawn is the RTS game, which we know nothing about for the most part. There's other games, too, that are Star Wars related that are getting made, but that's besides the point, because some of those other games are going to be totally different things, and we have so little information about them at the current moment that it's almost unimportant right now. So there's going to be chances to get that Star Wars game that allows you to create your own character. But for what Star Wars Outlaws is, it's trying to be a third-person action open-world game that is going to tell this story about this character. So put all that stuff to bed and get excited because, like I mentioned, Star Wars Outlaws looks pretty darn good. Like, I really want to see more of this game between the different planets you could go to, the different syndicates or the different, organizations you could run into. From that short gameplay trailer, we got to see that we're interacting with the Pikes. The Hutts are going to be part of this. Maybe possibly Black Sun for all we know. Maybe a Crimson Dawn. I mean, again, there's so many possibilities of what's going on within this time period, again, between Empire and Return of the Jedi, that we could run into a lot of different stuff, especially if we're going to certain planets. That's the cool thing about this. Remember, we're going to be in Tashanda, which is the main planet that they showed there. But I'm pretty sure in that little sizzle reel, we saw Tatooine. I would not be surprised if what we saw was Tatooine, maybe Jeddah at the same time, because I know that a lot of recent Star Wars stuff likes to go back to Jeddah ever since, Rogue One and Star Wars Jedi Survivor. But regardless, though, we could be going to other planets, involving ourselves with other syndicates. What if this is a nice spot where we could get reintroduced to Black Sun? How cool would that be? Because this is in the time frame of Shadows of the Empire. Now, you guys know how I feel about Shadows of the Empire. I still want that whole story to be made canon somehow. But I'll take something like this that alludes to it. I'll be totally cool with that, as well as other characters that might be involved with that, like Dash Rendar or something. That would be kind of cool. But again, I'm getting ahead of myself. My main point with all this stuff with the reactions to Star Wars Outlaws is that we got to judge the game for what it is when it finally comes out. Not get so caught up on what we wish it would be, what we think other people should think about this game, or any of the other nonsense that we've seen on social media as of lately, whether it's coming from the Star Wars community or not. And honestly, from what I saw, a lot of it is not coming even from the Star Wars community. It's coming from people that are reporting or trying to write about or talk about the Star Wars community at large. And I think that's so silly. It's so ridiculous, but I digress, though. What do I know, right? I just cover Star Wars games more than a lot of other people. I just write about and actually make videos and content like this about Star Wars games more than most other people. I'm just saying. So anyway, let me know some of your thoughts about all this stuff down below in the comments section. Talk to me. Are you guys excited for Star Wars Outlaws? Are you looking forward to the game for when they finally talk about it some more? I think we're probably going to see this game again, more than likely, by the Game Awards, if at all, because they did say in that trailer and some of the other material that this game is coming out in 2024. So realistically, besides maybe like a PlayStation showcase or like some state of play or maybe another Xbox showcase thing like presentation, that'll probably be the one ideal spot where we get to see this game again. They did mention that they are going to be doing something at San Diego Comic-Con, which I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, it's San Diego Comic-Con. I mean, Star Wars has a huge presence there, so it would make a lot of sense to do that. But I feel the Game Awards, like having a new sizzle reel, maybe some more gameplay, would be the best spot to showcase that game again before release. So we'll see what happens, though. I'm looking forward to it. But talk to me about all that, maybe some other thoughts and questions that you guys might have in the comment section down below. Make sure you leave a like on this episode, of course, if you guys can, on YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel on YouTube. There's a lot of videos that are up right now for you guys. I got my video review of Street Fighter 6 that's up that you guys could watch. I also got some gameplay reviews or impressions of like different games I've been trying out, including, Battle Shapers, which was a brand new first-person shooter game that I got to play on PC through Steam on early access. That's a little bit inspired by Mega Man X. So definitely check it out when you guys get a chance. It'll be in the annotations at the end of the video here. So anyway, I will talk to all of you again very soon. Peace out and stay epic, everybody.